In the past couple of days, ESPN analyst Dan Orlovsky put up some NFC North receiver core rankings, and it has caused quite the stir from non-Packers fans. Let me share it with you here. So here's the tweet from August 14th. Very difficult to answer this question fairly because all four are very good. And then he said, number one, I wanted 5 above average plus pass catchers as criteria. 2, tight ends were included. 3, Minnesota took 2 spot over Chicago strictly because Justin Jefferson accounts for 2+ players. He's so good. So as you can see there, if you are watching and not just listening, Packers, numero uno, Vikings, number 2, Bears, number 3, and then Lions, number 4. And let me read you some responses under this tweet here. Here we have from TJ Nextwave, Keenan, DJ, Adunze, Komet, Everett, just say you don't know ball. Sounds like a Bears fan, probably. Janique Eckhart, how do you pronounce that? I don't even think the worst Packers homers can agree with this. We're about to find out. Here we have from John Seeley, Moore, Allen, Adunze, Komet, Everett. Not any team in the NFC North has 5 pass catchers better than that. I'd argue that no team in the NFL has 5 pass catchers better than this. From Vikes Insider, any order that doesn't have Green Bay as number 4 is laughable. Green Bay isn't close to Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago. And then depressed Bears fan, Packers very overrated here. So now let me throw up the receiver core. I did top 4 receivers and top 2 tight ends from each roster. And let's discuss if the Packers are actually the best. And so if you look here at each of these teams, I would say that the Packers, when it comes to having that elite number 1 receiver, they don't have a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore. And by that, I mean someone who is going to easily get the largest amount of targets, most likely. The Packers have so many talented receivers who are all very similar to each other that I don't think this year one of those guys is going to get the target share of a Justin Jefferson or an Amon-Ra St. Brown. And so because of that, lots of these, I think other teams are more top-heavy than the Packers. But honestly, I think that if you look at top 3 receivers, the Packers are easily better than the Lions and the Vikings. You look at the Lions' 3rd receiver, Khalif Raymond, the Vikings' 3rd receiver, Jalen Naylor. I think the Packers there with, whoever you want to say is the Packers' number 3 receiver, Christian Watson, Dobbs, Wicks, whoever you think it is, Reed. I think they're better than the Lions and Vikings' number 3 receiver. Now, the Bears do have 3 really good receivers, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze. If you're just looking at top 3 receivers, I would probably have to go with the Bears. But because we are not looking at just top 3, but top 5 pass catchers, when you look at the Packers' 4th receiver, and let's say here it's Dontavian Wicks, just for the sake of argument. Maybe it's Dobbs, maybe it's Reed, Watson. There's that discussion when it comes to number 1 receiver. So let's say it's Dontavian Wicks. Dontavian Wicks is so much better than Tyler Scott on the Bears, who's the Bears' 4th weapon, 4th receiver. The Lions, even better than Khalif Raymond, Donovan Peoples-Jones. The Vikings, Jalen Naylor, Brandon Powell. And so the reason I think that Dan put the Packers number 1, and where I would actually have to agree, is no other team in the NFC North has the depth at receiver that the Packers have. Dontavian Wicks, whichever receiver you want to put there at number 4, is better than any other team's 4th best receiver. It's very set in stone in my opinion. And so because of that, there's always injuries during the season. There's injuries at all places, at every position. And because the Packers have 4 really good receivers who can all be very productive, it's beneficial when there are injuries because let's say Watson deals with an injury. You still have 3 really solid receivers there's still not a weakness, I would say, on the field. Where with these other teams, if Jamison Williams got injured or Keenan Allen got injured, you have like 2 solid receivers, which is still probably fine, but the Packers have 4. And so because of that, I would have to agree with Dan Orlovsky here. And honestly, if we just look last year at the Packers and their scoring offense, when you include the playoffs, the Packers had the 8th most points scored in the entire NFL on a per-game basis. And so even though all these players last season were very, very young players, they were still one of the best offenses in the NFL, and that's even with the Packers having that stretch of games where they went on a losing streak, when Jordan Love had not yet reached the upper echelon of his production and what he could actually do. And the Packers were still the eighth best scoring offense in the entire NFL, including the playoffs. And so because of that, the Packers have already proved, I think, that they're a better offense than most of these other teams. Now, maybe the Bears with Caleb Williams take a step forward. That's a possibility. I think that Caleb Williams has a very bright future. Looks like a very, very solid quarterback. But just going with all those facts, I would probably have to say that Dan Orlovsky, he's right on this one.